What's up, everybody? This is Jason with 10 Soldier. Welcome to another edition of Motivational Monday. Since me and Ricky been slacking, mostly just me, not Ricky, and you haven't had one in a couple weeks, we decided to really break out all the stops. We're outside. We have a visual aid. It's going to be awesome. This visual aid is brought to you by Big Brain Brad because he just can't say no to getting Mustangs. So this thing just showed up in our parking lot, which Ricky's got a video of that, of it just showing up. See? It's pretty nice. Oh, that thing. Oh, no, we can go to it. I mean, see, then I'm like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, somebody out there.
And really the good thing about this car is, it's born to be a race car. It just doesn't know it yet. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about for this edition of Motivational Monday. If you just drug this bad boy out of a field and you pulled it into your driveway, your wife would probably ask a lot of questions and really she probably wouldn't see the potential in this old girl. She, again, she was born to be a race car, but doesn't look like it. I had this similar circumstance with my wife when we were looking to buy a house. My wife really liked the older houses, and I did too. I love older houses. But you go in and it'd be such a project, and the wood would look crappy and all this stuff, and my wife would totally see what it could look like, and I would just be like, man, this house is a pile of crap. But she would totally see the potential within it. So men, and this is stereotypical, but men, if you're trying to convince your wife that this could be a race car, just go to our website and you can see what these look like done. But to the average person, it takes a little bit of an imagination. And that's what we're talking about today for Motivational Monday, is this car, if we unloaded it the way that it sits at South Georgia Motorsports Park, or any drag race for that instance, just saying that we want to drag race and take this car to the race is really not enough. If we showed up on our casters with nothing else, it really that race probably wouldn't go so good. You have to take this, or you have to start on it yourself, the journey of what it takes to make this into a race car. So I was talking to one of my buddies over the weekend just about what it's like to have a relationship with Jesus. And I want to say this before I get into our analogy here. We love you exactly where you are. The only reason that we really talk about God as much as we do, talk about Jesus, and I want to talk to myself personally, is I know what he gave me. And I know the peace that I have in my heart. I know the way that I look at life, how much joy that I get out of life. I love to live. I love to interact with people. There's stresses of owning a business, all that stuff. But like, I found through my relationship with him that it's easy to give those stresses away and keep going. And I have such peace in life. And I would really have to not like people to not try to direct them towards that peace. And again, we love you exactly the way that you are. I'm not saying that you have to believe this stuff. All I'm saying is I know what it's done for me personally, and I'd really have to not like you to share that. Now, does that mean that we're perfect people? Absolutely not. Does that mean that we do. We make mistakes. We do all those things. But man, what Jesus has done in my life is undeniable. And when I was talking to my friend over the weekend, he kept saying how like he wanted to get his life kind of together and then give his life to God, which is awesome, right? But we don't need to do that. God, and through Jesus' sacrifice, is what helps get our life together. So if you look at this car, the way that it sits, for a race car builder, it's kind of a blank canvas that a lot of people would not see the potential in. But to get it all the way to the winner's circle is going to take some work, right? So this car is not automatically a race car. It takes a process. And it is the same with Jesus. When we say yes to Jesus, that does not mean that our life is together. That just means that we want to start this relationship with Him. And what I mean by that is this car, it would come to us like this, and then it would have a long road to get to the point where it's ready to go down the racetrack. And that journey, this car would not get dropped off as a completed race car and then go through this journey. It has to come to us like this first, just like you have to come, or you would go to Jesus in this rough state. And then the car gets rolled in the shop in this rough state, and then we get to work on it, and we start changing it, and that's through the hands of people that really know what they're doing. We start building and have a goal and a vision of where it wants to go. And through this process, we get to know it better. We find out the flaws and we fix them. Like, man, there's like a little rust coming in back here. The floor pans don't look good. The front up here's kind of been in some sort of accident, but great news for us, we're not going to use any of that stuff. We're just going to cut it all off, but then we're going to add stuff back that's better. And that's exactly what God does in your life. Is you come to him with some rust, you come to him with broken pieces, and you come to him with rotted out floor pans, and then he starts to remove that stuff and then replace it with something better. And through that journey, what happens is you get to know him better and he gets to know you better. And you go through this whole journey, and it's not easy. So, a lot of times on a project per se, most people can do the demo work. And what I mean by that is they're going to start cutting the floor out, they'll cut the front end off, they get the doors off of it, and they get this thing gutted down to a shell with nothing in it pretty easy, right? Like that part of the build's easy. And you see people work like banshees and get all that done. Well, then after that's done, then you start to have to put into it what really matters, like the chassis and all the things that really take someone that's skilled. And that's where projects really bog down a lot, is they no longer have the skill to get the work done. They have to start relying on somebody else. And that's the same thing with your relationship with God, is like you say yes, and then you start to go to work, and a lot of times maybe the beginning of it might be a little easy, maybe it's not. It's dirty, definitely, and you're cutting out a lot of stuff that you don't need. Well, then all of a sudden, you've cut out everything that you don't need. Now you're on to the next step, and that's a lot harder. And you're going to have to lean into people that really have done it before you, that understand it more than you have, to keep growing into the next step. And the whole build process of one of these things is exactly like that. It's to the next step, to the next step, to the next step. And you don't paint this thing until you're done, because you have a lot of really hard work to do before it goes to that point. And there's such a rewarding part of when one of these cars is done and we roll it out of the shop for the first time, and it no longer looks like this, but it sits 3 inches off the ground. The paint looks good. It's got the right wheels on it. And we can see what this thing was destined to be now. It went from that, from this to that. And you can literally see the potential oozing off of it. And most people, though, would see this and not see the potential oozing off of it. They just see a lot of work. But once you give this over to somebody that knows what they're doing, all of a sudden, once it's done, everyone else can see the potential. And that's kind of how the walk with Jesus is like, in the beginning, you might have people that make fun of you or don't really understand, and make fun of is probably a bad word. Like, we're more grown up than that now, hopefully. But they kind of challenge your way of thinking. They don't understand why you're even regrouping your life in this way. Well, then you keep making those decisions, and then before you know it, you might be this painted race car, right? You might be this car that's ready to go to the racetrack, and they start to see that hard work paying off, and the positive mindset start paying off, and the way that you view the world start paying off. Well, then what's really cool is now you get to go to the racetrack with this completed project, right? But that has its whole other set of issues of trying to figure out how to get it to go down the racetrack, how to figure out this whole mess of stuff. And you go through this journey of, once it's a completed race car, to get it to the winner's circle. We don't build anything without the mindset of this thing's going to the winner's circle, period. Like, we will do what it takes to figure it out. So along that journey of, once it's kind of a finished race car and you got your wheels under you per se, man, you might hit the wall. You might blow a motor up. The transmission might go out of it. So just because, like, as a Christian, maybe you're a little more polished, maybe you've been on this journey a little longer, does not mean that things aren't going to happen, that you're not going to make mistakes, that you're not going to hit the wall, that you're not going to do all these things. That's just part of the journey. And you know what happens? We've had a lot of race cars that hit the wall. Then they come back, and we do a little bit more work to them, and we fix them back up. We fix what's broken, and then we get them back out on the racetrack to eventually get it to the winner's circle. And that's how God looks at you, man, is he sees you, when you say yes to him, he automatically, through the sacrifice of what Jesus did on the cross, he automatically sees you in the winner's circle, even though you don't see yourself. And he already knows the journey that you're going to take to get to that winner's circle, even though you have no idea what it's going to take, but he does. But I can't imagine, like, I know what it feels like when we build one of these things and then we see it in the winner's circle for the first time. The feeling of accomplishment it's overwhelming to know that you took it from this to sitting in the winner's circle, the place that you destined that thing to be, is so amazing. And I know that that's how God looks at us. When we decide to follow him and then we go through the journey, we don't clean our lives up. He helps us do that. And he gives us the ability to lean into him to do that, and the knowledge that he has, all that stuff. But then when you follow that journey and you walk it out and you start living the life that you were destined to live, you start acting on those dreams, you start doing the things that people say can't be done, and you start really loving people, man, that's when you're in the winner's circle, right? Like, life, not that you're always going to be there, but that part of being in the winner's circle, I can't imagine how God feels about you, and that he loves you all the time regardless. But the sense of seeing this person that he loves so much walking in their purpose has to feel unimaginable, because in the Bible it says that we are his masterpiece, created in him for works that we didn't even know were going to happen. So, and masterpiece can also mean workmanship. And I don't think that it's an accident that when Jesus, which is God incarnated, came to this earth, he was a carpenter. So he worked with his hands every day. He was an extension of God, right? And he came and he worked and created with his hands. And in the same way, God the Father created you with his hands. And he got intimately involved with you. And when he sees his masterpiece walk in the purpose that he created for them, it's got to be an unreal feeling. So we love you guys. And again, if you're not on I wouldn't even, the general term would be religious, but I don't think of myself as religious. I think of myself as in a relationship with Jesus that loves me. So if that seems super weird to you, that's okay. Like I said, and I'll say it a lot, we love you exactly where you are, and we never want you to feel that you have to believe to belong. That's not how this works. You belong just because, you might just love race cars, or you might love Ricky, or I don't know. So have a great, this probably go out on Tuesday, so have a great rest of the week. We love you. See you later.